This is The Space Shot, episode 301 for March 11th, 2018. Pioneer 5 and Dextre. I'm John Molnix. I've got two pieces of space history plus some news today. The first one is a little bit older of a mission. On March 11th, 1960, Pioneer 5 was launched on a Thor-Able rocket from Cape Canaveral. This small, spin-stabilized spacecraft only weighed 94.8 pounds, and due to weight constraints, it had just enough solar cells to power the spacecraft for short periods each day. Pioneer 5 sent back data on, quote, magnetic field phenomena, solar flare particles, and ionization in the interplanetary region. This tiny little spacecraft sent back 3 million bits of data, and they were received by tracking stations in Hawaii and New Hampshire. 3 million bits of data is pretty small by today's standards. The file size for yesterday's episode was about 8 megabytes. 3 million bits clocks in at 0.375 megabytes. Not exactly a lot of data by today's standards. However, the spacecraft wasn't transmitting pictures or video or audio, just science data from its instruments. Now for a more recent launch, 10 years ago today specifically. On March 11th, 2008, the Space Shuttle Endeavour lifted off on the 25th flight to the International Space Station. The payload for this shuttle flight was two international components, the Canadian-made Dextre robotics system and the Japanese Kibo logistics module. As with shuttle flights during this time, there was a crew rotation as part of this mission. Dextre is the special-purpose dextrous manipulator, which attaches to Canadarm2 on the station, as well as on the mobile base system. I talked a little bit about the mobile base system way back in episode 22, specifically how this component enables Canadarm2 to move along station trusses, which helped astronauts build out the station as modules and components arrived. Dextre helps astronauts by conducting time-consuming operations that would typically require a spacewalk. One of its more fascinating features, and one that's still in testing, mind you, is the robotic refueling mission. Dextre was used to test the techniques that would be needed for future refueling missions for satellites in Earth orbit. To accomplish this mission, Dextre has a, quote, blanket manipulation tool, a wire cutter, multifunction tool, safety cap removal tool, and nozzle tool. The tools, each about the size of a toaster, will allow Dextre to complete tasks like cutting through the simulated satellite's lock wires and blanket tape, as well as removing layers of insulation. I'm linking to a few Canadian Space Agency pages on Dextre in the show notes, so be sure to check them out. It's a really cool system. One of the things I noticed when researching the mobile base system and Canadarm2 as well as Dextre is their power requirements. Canadarm2 and the base system use at most 2,800 watts under a full load and an idle power of 800 watts. By comparison, my desktop computer has an 800 watt power supply. It's interesting to think about the power constraints faced by systems in space and how inefficient some Earth-based systems are in comparison. Now I've got quick news updates plus some launch updates. The end of March and pretty much all of April is going to be a very busy time at the Cape. SpaceX is scheduled to launch the first Block 5 Falcon 9, as well as the launch of TESS, the Transiting Exoplanet Survey satellite. As these launch dates approach, I'll be sure to share links to their live streams. Lastly, Elon Musk made some waves at South by Southwest with a last-minute appearance at the conference. If the timeline that Musk shared for the flight of the BFR holds up, 2019 could end up being a historic year for SpaceX. I'm linking to an Engadget article with all the highlights of his talk. I'd be incredibly grateful if you could share the Space Shot with your friends and family. Tag one of them and let them know about your favorite episode. I'd also really appreciate it if you could venture into the Apple Podcasts app or your podcast app of choice and leave a review for the Space Shot. A steady stream of these reviews helps ensure that the Space Shot is more visible in the Apple Podcasts app. As always, the show notes have more information on today's episode. You can hit me up on Instagram and Twitter. Find me at John Molnix. I'm always up to chat. You can also connect with me on Facebook. Just search The Space Shot or click the link in the show notes and you'll find me. Tomorrow, the X-38 crew return vehicle. I'm John Molnix, and I'll catch you on the flip side.